Okay, I have finished my view A bottoms. I have also finished the top that I would like to connect to mine. I'll have this top sewn in a separate video. It is the deep V front with strappy part, and then the U back that's just cut on the fold with no closure. So what you're going to do is we're going to be connecting this at the middle. So make sure you have your center point marked on both the bottom and on the top. It's easy to see where the center is on the deep V because it is in between the two cups. So what you're going to do is we want to catch this in this seam allowance right here. So you want the centers to match up. So you're essentially folding like as if you were attaching the band. You're folding it like this, and then you're sandwiching that band between the cups and the suit. So it looks like cups on top with the cups facing down, then the band right sides together, and then the bottom of the sandwich is your bottom view A suit facing up. And then we're just going to sew this into the band seam allowance, and then we're going to flip that seam allowance down and then top stitch it. I'm doing the strappy, so I'm going to be top stitching it with the strappy sewn into the middle as well. Okay, I'll show you this at the machine. So I have my center clipped, and I'm going to be sewing from this side. So I'm sewing this into the seam so that so it's going to look like this when I'm done. It's hard to see with all these layers, but this is how I'm sewing it right now. I have the bottoms pointing down, and then I have the band, and then there's the cup on the bottom. And you've already sewn the band to the cup. I mean, you could have done this when you were doing the band, but it's a lot of layers. So I'm just going to go over that serge seam. So you're doing it really with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, since you've already trimmed 1/8 off when you were sewing, if you're using your serger. If you're using a regular machine, you didn't trim anything off. And you can tell I already top stitched part of mine down, so my band down. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. I'm going to remove my basting stitches in a little bit. So this is what it looks like now, and you can see I don't have it top stitched. And I'm going to go back, and whenever I'm top stitching is whenever I am going to attach the middle point of my strappy, and then that'll also kind of hold everything in place. And you do want to top stitch the seam down and not up, because if you top stitch it up, for one thing, it's going to show on the right side of your deep V, and then another thing, you won't be catching your band. And one of the best parts of top stitching is your band staying still, because it's always really frustrating to have elastic in a band that shifts all over the place, and every time you put it on, you're adjusting it. And this keeps that from happening because it's holding it in place. So I'm going to do that at my machine. I'm using the same stitch I've been using a lot, which is, between 2.5 and 3. In length and width on my zigzag. You kind of, after you've played around with yours, you'll kind of find one that you like the best. Some people like the length, having the length at 3.0, and some like a little shorter of a length. It's really one of those things that, as long as you're in that range, it's going to be fine. And I like to top stitch it from the wrong side, just to make sure that I'm catching my seam allowance. Also because, here, I'm going to move you closer, because I know you want to see just as much as you want to hear me talk. So you can see that here's my cups, and there's my band, and they're all together in one seam allowance. And I didn't attach this in there. I mean, I could have, but that would have just been a lot of layers to work with at the serger. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to make sure that I'm catching my seam allowance, and I'm seeing that my elastic is getting caught as well into my zigzag. Always back stitch, and I'm going to catch the bottom of my strap for the strappy. And you don't have to do the strappy, you could do any option. This is just the option at the top that I chose. And then you're also, there's a lot going on right here. You are stretching your band slightly because your under bust elastic is slightly smaller. So you are having to keep pressure on your band. So this isn't a time where you're just speeding through it, because You want to make sure you're evenly stretching your band to where you're not sewing puckers in your fabric, or if you don't stretch it at all when you're top stitching, you're going to end up with all this bunched fabric at the end and have to rip a lot of stitches, and I don't like ripping stitches on swimwear. So I'm going to make sure that I evenly stretch. You can see if you evenly stretch, it lays down all nice and flat. And then let me make sure I caught my strappy part. I would hate for that to come in. I only really caught the bottom of it really well, so I'm just going to zigzag over the strappy part to make sure that it's nice and caught. Okay. And now I'm done. I'm going to try my suit on. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me in sewing this suit. I hope you love yours.